we go. Raymond Flotat from mxdwn.com here. We are at Summer Game Fest again. All kinds of crazy stuff going on here. And we are at Magic the Gathering. And I'm here with Patrick Jarrett, who goes by Trick.
That's right.
Such a pleasure to meet you, Patrick.
Absolutely. Pleasure to meet you.
Indeed. And so we're here talking about the newest expansion, which is called
Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth.
How many cards are in this expansion?
I forget the exact number, honestly. There's a lot. We have the main set, then we also have commander decks, we have Jumpstart, we have all sorts of different ways for people to see Lord of the Rings characters and cards in the set.
Is it like north of 300?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a large set.
I can tell you that I know we commissioned over 900 pieces of art for this set. So across all the different variations and things like that, there's several hundred cards as well.
Is there, I mean, Lord of the Rings is a huge lore, right? Like the hugest of lores I think there is besides the Wheel of Time, right? And I mean, is every single major character in this?
Not every single character.
Okay.
So we're focused on just the Fellowship of the Ring trilogy.
Okay.
There are some cards from outside of that because they're referenced in the books. Like we have a Smaug token because he's mentioned as part of the Bilbo saga of what his writings were.
Yep.
But we don't have things from the Silmarillion. We don't have things from the CD series or anything like that.
No.
But from those three books, we went deep. There's characters all the way from the main Fellowship down to Butterbur, Bree Innkeeper, or Bill the Pony.
Bill the Pony.
Bill the Pony has a card,
awesome.
all those sorts of things. So we got a lot of them in this set, though.
Very beautiful, beautiful. And so we were talking a little bit as we were just playing a game Magic. Of course, we didn't film any of that, but as far as the mechanics of the One Ring, perhaps for people who aren't the biggest Magic fan, people who don't know Magic well, how does the One Ring work in this set?
So what we did was we introduced a mechanic called Tempted by the Ring. And so what happens is when you are tempted by the ring, it introduces what we call an emblem into the game of Magic. And that's just a thing that sits off to the side, represents that we've now introduced a new sort of set of small rule tweaks for how the game works.
Yes.
And when you are first tempted by the ring, you choose one of your creatures to be the ring bearer.
Yes.
And at the first level, that ring bearer now becomes legendary because they are carrying the one ring.
Of course. And
they become unblockable. And that's just the first level. Now, when you're tempted again, it increases to the second level, and it changes how it affects. And this goes all the way for 4 different levels to be as you are increasingly more and more tempted by the ring. And your ring bearer thus becomes more and more powerful as Sauron and the One Ring's power takes hold over them.
Wow. And effectively, one of the things that's always been key about Magic is that, Magic has its own mechanism of modern, and like it's constantly kind of cycling in new players.
Right.
What I've always found in my dealings with Magic, and just, and occasionally trying to get cards I want, right, whether they're from recent sets or older sets, but effectively, like, people kind of age out eventually. They're in for a few blocks, and then they kind of put it aside for a while. And so this set particularly, is there a notion in the making of the mechanics of this set, how it all works? Is this aimed for more introductory people, or is this aimed for like those people who are obsessive, masters who are into everything that the game does?
I mean, it's really meant for both of those groups. Like, obviously, we want to keep as many players who are in the game happy and enjoying it.
Yes.
But also, being able to reach Lord of the Rings fans, being able to speak to these people who maybe are either aware of Magic and haven't had a reason to check it out.
Yes.
Or also, if you're a Magic fan who has a friend who's a Lord of the Rings fan but hasn't been interested in checking Magic out, it's a great way to sort of introduce them to this game that you already enjoy.
Yes.
So it is definitely approachable for new fans. Like you and I were playing just now with our starter kit, which is 2 60-card decks meant to be played against each other.
Right.
But also, it's got 4 commander decks, so you're ready to grab one of those and jump into a commander pod with friends. And then also, it's just Magic. The game is still the game.
Right.
And the mechanics, while new, aren't overly complex, aren't something crazy that new fans will be overwhelmed by. So it's approachable by new players. It should be enticing and exciting for existing players.
Right.
So we're hoping to cross the whole spectrum.
One of the things that I've dabbled with, I've stumbled upon, is there are like math nerds out there that game out the probability of pulling certain cards in this. Now, the One Ring, I mean, the one ring, I'm talking about, the one of one, right? Like, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff about that already, and it's going to be like the golden ticket from the Willy Wonka movies, right? Like, this is why this is going to be its own band apart. Like, someone like me, sure, great, but I'm not expecting to win the lottery either, right? Like, I'm not expecting to pull the One Ring. For me, what draws me in is like we were talking about before, right? There's either the mechanics that do something really awesome and exciting, make the game really cool, or there's art that's really good. And I don't often vibe on the art, but in this one, as we were talking about, like, I'm drooling over half of the cards that I've seen. And I know I haven't seen everything. I know not everything's even been announced. So kind of I guess the question is like the more recent era of Magic has been a lot of the set boosters versus the collector's boosters. And there's kind of its own controversy in that, because certainly like an average kid isn't going to be going for collector's boosters. That's more collector's people. So I know that certain of the cards, like the One Ring, for example, beyond the 1/1 ring, just the normal version, and then there's like an alternative art version, an extended art version. I mean, in terms of like the probabilities of this, do you have any sense of the scale of like the print run, how much is going to be out in circulation for a lot of this?
So the packaging actually covers this and tells you, if you look on it, what your odds are of opening various forms of cards.
Okay.
I don't know them off the top of my head, but you know, the entire desire here is for it to be exciting for fans, the people who want to go after the collectability, go looking for those exciting variations on cards, whether it's the 1/1 ring in the collector boosters and where else it can be found, or if it's the variations of the Nazgul, or if it's the scene arts that we've introduced, like Pelennor Fields, where you have 18 cards making up a single piece of art. Yeah, exactly.
That's me.
So it speaks to this different segment of our audience who are driven and want to experience that as well as playing the game.
Now, talk me through just a little bit in terms of, your everyday existence in Magic. Where is your part in connecting with all this and the mechanics and how things are coming together?
So my work for Wizards largely focuses on how we put this out to our fans.
Okay.
I'm on the marketing comms team. I focus on previews with Blake, and who is well known for weekly MTG and stuff like that. I work on our social media, putting posts out, videos and stuff like that.
Got it.
So that said, I also do talk to people in studio, and I contribute occasionally to products. I didn't contribute to Lord of the Rings, but I've been at Wizards for 11 years, so I've worn a lot of different hats over the time.
A lot of different things that you've done. So you're concerned with a lot of how are we trying to, I want to say present, but how are we trying to reach people with, like, here's what you're going to get from this. Here's what's going to happen in this set. Here's why it's special.
Right, exactly. I'm trying to help people, because people who might have heard of Magic will have a decision, have gone, either that sounds cool, or maybe it's maybe that's not for me.
Right.
And so, like, Lord of the Rings is a great chance for us to sort of have that conversation again, perhaps with those people, or with new players who have never had an opportunity. It's just a chance for us to say, hey, this is what Magic's about. So how do we best present this to those new different audiences? How do we best put our foot forward and talk to the fans?
What's interesting to me, knowing the specifics of your day-to-day, how much are you engaging with what, not engaging isn't the right way of putting it, how much are you listening and reacting to what people out there are saying? Because, Magic is a kind of thing like, I don't know, being a fan of Grand Theft Auto, right? There's such a gigantic install base of people, and going now back decades.
Right.
There's people from 7 different eras of Magic at the point that it's been around. It's like being a Frank Zappa fan. It's kind of like falling down an endless hole, right? And different people have very different notions of what is like. In my day, we did it this way. This day, there's a lot of different super preachy opinions on what makes Magic right or good. How much are you listening or paying attention to what people are out there saying in terms of when you're thinking about putting a set like this together and thinking of mechanics or cards?
Sure. We like to say we are stewards of Magic. We make the game, but it's our fans who make it amazing. It wouldn't be what it was if people weren't playing it. So it's important to us that we take feedback from our fans and we consider their things. That said, being a physical game introduces a difficulty in being reactive.
Right.
Sometimes, we take feedback from a set, but we're already working 6, however many sets further out already.
Yes.
So it's slow for us to be able to necessarily implement a learning change from one set to another.
Yes.
But we are always listening, always taking feedback, and when we're able to be reactive, when fans have a feedback and they're right, we try to adjust course and make changes.
Gotcha.
I think a great example is actually the MagicCon tournament conventions that we're starting to run. We ran Magic 30 in Las Vegas last year, had a lot of learnings from that. Implemented changes for Philly, had a lot of learnings from that. And when we got to Minneapolis, fans were really happy. We've gotten a really good basis and structure for these events, but we're still learning. We're still doing new things. We're still changing things up. And we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up from events to these sets and all of that sort of stuff.
So beyond the One Ring, what are any, I've obviously seen some, and it's escaping out my brain right now,
Sure.
but what are other mechanics that are new to this set that people haven't seen in Magic before?
So there's Tempted by the Ring. We talked about that one briefly.
Yes.
There's a mass orcs, which isn't a new mechanic, but it is a new spin on a mechanic. Because we used a mass previously in War of the Spark to represent building a zombie army.
Right.
Well, obviously, it makes perfect flavorful sense. The entire flavor of what Sauron and Saruman are doing during Lord of the Rings' story is amassing an army. And so what you're doing is you're building, you get an orc token, and you get to add counters to it as you're slowly building it. So like a card might say amass 2, gives you a 2/2 orc army. But then the next card says or amass orcs 1, and that 2/2 becomes a 3/3. And then there's other cards that go, when you put a token on an army, add 1 additional one. So now if you're like an amass 2 with that card out, that now becomes an additional 3, so now it becomes an orc army 6/6. So that's one of the additional flavor mechanics. The other thing we did was we brought food back. Food's been a recurring theme for a couple of sets, starting back with Eldraine, but it's a central theme here because of the hobbits. And one of the things that we all think about the hobbits is they know how to live the good life.
Sure.
They enjoy their food. They enjoy 6 meals a day.
Yeah.
And so food became a central theme for us with them. When it comes to the elves, what we did was we looked at them and looked at specifically Galadriel and Elrond, if you think about them, and their magical powers.
Yes.
And Galadriel has her portents and ability to look in her bowl. And so scrying is a big mechanic for the elves of the Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth. So we really took those mechanics. And so the only really new one is Tempted by the Ring.
Right.
But we brought these other mechanics and made them central to this set to represent these different groups and how they might play or interact in the story.
Excellent. Trick, I really appreciate your time.
Of course.
I really appreciate all your knowledge and playing some games with me, and I very much look forward to seeing more of this when I finally get a chance to get some of it myself.
So your first chance is going to be next week. The pre-release will be happening 16th, 17th, and 18th at local game stores.
Beautiful. And
then it'll be on sale in all stores globally starting the 23rd.
Excellent.
It'll be also on Arena before, and then but honestly, I don't remember that date. It's the end of the second day here at Game Days, and so I'm starting to drag it.
You and me both.
I feel you.
All right, sir. So good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.